Happy Labor Day, everybody. I hope you're having a good time hanging out with maybe family, friends, or by yourself, whatever. Holidays can be holidays from other people too. Had a busy weekend, but relaxing today. And of course, I forgot how much everybody cares about who wins football games. And because it is the start of the week here and the NFL season is starting on Thursday, let's go to our pick sheet. We're gonna analyze football here today, everybody. We're gonna have some fun. Looks like I already broke everything. Yeah, we'll fix that though. So we're gonna talk about how the picks sheet and the projection pivot sheet go together and how you diagnose a game. And we're gonna go through and we're going to apply a lot of intelligence to make our algorithm do the most optimal things, because the algorithm is only going to be as good as the accuracy of the information that you have inside of it and the way you're programming and weaving it all together. So there's a ton of stuff on the screen. I'm not expecting you to understand what you're seeing, but we're going to go through the thought process of how you work on this file to get it to do what you want to do, so that as I do it in this video, by the end of the video, I'll be able to give you an excellent prediction on the Thursday night game, which is the Chiefs and the Lions. And we'll have a lot of confidence about why it's doing the thing it's doing. And we'll show areas where there are new players and talk about those new players and give them ratings. So without further ado, let's get started. So this projection pivot sheet, Proj Pivot, this here is a pivot table that has all the teams and all the players and a score. We give them this thing called a C-score, which is like how powerful the player is. So when you start to open up teams and you see, oh, we have Christian McCaffrey as a super powerful player. Now, that's because he does running and wide receiving things and will get the ball a lot when he's not injured. This is kind of the way that the algorithm applies a rating based on stats and stuff. So it's important that we understand we're giving a rating to each player, and that's going to impact the game. Okay, fine. Our ratings aren't always going to be perfect, but they're there for a reason. They're based on last season's stats right now. So first of all, some things that need to happen in here from a technical standpoint is that you need to have your grand total be in this column. And without getting too complicated, there's just an order to the positions, and we have basically a blank position in here. And we need to get rid of that. And there's several different ways to get rid of that, but we'll just highlight all positions, and that moves this column over and gets it in the right column. The reason why this column is where this grand total has to be is because it's connected to the score. So you're going to get no score if it isn't lined up and doesn't. And what you're looking at to help produce and predict these games, this score thing, comes from this sheet. So whatever you are seeing on this table, the team and the number over to the right and the number for each player in the middle, when you see this, you know that the score is predicting AJ Brown has a 0.87 contribution number, right? And the green numbers are better, yellow numbers are better, red numbers are lower. So knowing that you have this here, well, now instead of talking about the whole week, because you can see there's so much information in here, let's just do the Thursday night game. That would be day Thursday. Right now, it says Kansas City Chiefs 24, Detroit Lions 21. Okay. This is the starting point with which we are going to prune the projection pivot sheet for this game between the two teams we're going to highlight. So we're going to grab a slicer and we're going to highlight two teams, one being Detroit. And then you can hold down the control button if you don't have this multi-select. You can already do the multi-select right now and then go to Kansas City. You can hold down control. There's a couple different ways you can do it. So we've got both of these teams up here now. We need to dig down and see if we want to include everyone that's listed and if they have a reasonable contribution score. Oh, one more thing. Let's move the name to the right one and put injury status up here first, because this is also important. We want to extend it out because now we're going to see exactly who's injured, because injuries matter, and injuries oftentimes are probably one of the most important factors in the game, because knowing whether or not someone's going to play drastically impacts the team sometimes in a sport like football. So we've just opened up the Chiefs, and we can see that we're going to start analyzing things. For the purposes of this exercise, we are going to remove all the previous ratings that I have applied to any player. Meaning there's an override number here where you get to override their percentage, because there are going to be players that have no stats yet. They're going to be players that have not played at all. Oh, let's do this. Let's get rid of blank names. No, get rid of blank names. Holding down control. No, won't let me do it, huh? Wow. All right. Control button stuck. So we're getting rid of the 0 names. And what this does is this shows you who's playing and who's injured. Now, when you look at both of these teams, when it comes to injuries, you can see that on the IR are 3 new people and suspension for Jameson Williams, and that's a big number. So this one here is really, really big. So when you look at the total wide receiving core for Detroit at 2.41, it's greater than Kansas City right now. But what happens when we only put non-injured players and questionable players in? And all these other ones that are people that are out comes out. And now all of a sudden, Detroit's wide receiving core just dropped by Jameson Williams' number, and it's less. And what does that do? It's going to change scores. Yep. Now all of a sudden, it's a 24-17 game that the Chiefs are winning at a magnifier of 5.5. And the magnifier is another area that's really important in here. This is kind of like a weather magnifier as well as just an overall scoring drive magnifier. It's nice to mess around with this after the results for the week, because you start to see, like, how much do we multiply these C-score numbers by to get to what the actual score was. That's what this is trying to do. And throughout the season, I found like an average magnifier of 5 is probably pretty good. Now, when there are games that are in places with bad weather, or it's like snowing and stuff like that, you want to bring that down to like a 3 or a 4 or something. Like if you make this a low-scoring game in Kansas City to start off the season for some reason, it goes in this realm. It becomes like a 17-13 game. So adjusting the magnifier is important when you're really thinking about scores, but you also want to think about who's going to win, because when we make these videos about which team's supposed to win, it picks just money line winners. I know it doesn't pay very much, but this doesn't have to be about gambling as much as it is about knowledge about what's supposed to happen in a game, right? So in that sense, the Chiefs are showing a lot of strength in a couple different categories already as we adjust this. But we need to dig deeper, and we need to look player by player. And for that, we might also need things like artificial intelligence, like Bing or chatbots or whatever that are connected to current internet to get actual updates on people. So let's go through by position all of these players and see what we like and what we want to actually put in the roster, right? So what does that mean? That means that we're looking at QBs first. Make it easy on us so that we can, build personalities for these players and understand what's going on. Well, Patrick Mahomes is a beast. Has just come off a Super Bowl. He's probably going to be playing the game, right? We have no rating for Blaine Gabbert. I don't have a problem with that. Patrick Mahomes probably plays this whole game. So I don't think we adjust anything when it comes to the Chiefs QBs. Well, with Detroit, you've got Jared Goff with a 0.18 as what looks like the first string goalie. Not goalie, but quarterback. We're not talking hockey yet. Jared Goff is a first string quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater has no rating in here. He must have been coming back off of injury. You could try to, I guess he's probably not playing, but I almost want to give him some type of rating. And so what we do here is we say, all right, well, this is where you get AI involved. Like, all right, we're asking like Bing right now. What do you think? What do you think about Teddy Bridgewater playing in the opening football game in the NFL season? Bing. Let's see what happens. We're just trying to see if there's any chance Teddy Bridgewater.
He meant to say yo instead of o.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Teddy Bridgewater is an American football quarterback who currently plays for the Detroit Lions of the National Football League, NFL. He has played for several teams in his career, including the Minnesota Vikings, the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers, and the Denver Broncos. He was a Pro Bowl selection in 2015 and won the Art Rooney Award in 2020. Bridgewater is expected to start in the opening game of the 2023 NFL season against the Green Bay Packers
What'd you
on
say?
September 7th.
Oh,
I think he is a talented and resilient player who has overcome many challenges and injuries in his
yeah,
career.
that's true.
He has a good completion percentage and a decent passer rating, but he also needs to improve his touchdown to interception ratio and his deep passing accuracy. I hope he can lead the Lions to a successful season and prove his critics wrong. What do
Okay.
you think about Bridgewater?
Oh, you're
Are you a fan of him or any of his former teams?
I think Teddy Bridgewater had a great season years ago, and he was also one of those mobile running quarterbacks at that time. But as all those quarterbacks age and you just get hit by 300-pound dudes at 100 miles an hour, you just take injuries and it becomes tough to move around. I'm not going to wait for a response out of Bing because Bing just listened to that. But
I agree with you.
all right, pause. How do I pause you? Okay. You agree with me. Oh my God. All right. Now we're getting into trouble. But here's what I wanted to, the reason for all of that is we get really, really deep into Teddy Bridgewater is that Jared Goff, while he did not win a Super Bowl in Detroit, he got in LA, he got traded and then Stafford came in and won a Super Bowl. Jared Goff does not have great future expectations. And Teddy Bridgewater will definitely provide something when he comes in. He definitely is more of a threat as having, if you're a former Pro Bowl selection, you're a backup quarterback, no matter what your age, you can do something. So he deserves more than a 0 because what are the odds that Jared Goff plays great? Clearly, Mahomes is 3 times the quality quarterback than Goff is, according to these stats. So we need to put something in for Bridgewater. And I know it adds to Detroit's total, but you need to do something because he is providing a little bit. So I'm going to give him a 0.1, 10%. All right. This is going to up, if this worked properly, this is going to up Detroit's offense a little bit. Yeah. And show that there's a little more balance and that Teddy might have some snaps in game 1 if things start to go really well for Kansas City. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, all right, Mahomes is probably going to walk down and score some points because that's what he does. And then Goff could potentially not play very well or doesn't provide much anyway, or even get hurt or whatever. And you might see Bridgewater at some point during the game and he would provide something. So you want to give them a little more here. All right. So that's a long-winded explanation of how you can really go player by player and get accurate information. Let's check out kickers. 2 kickers that have stats, nothing to do here. That's good. Let's check out running backs. Okay. So I can see that we have nothing for Jimmy Gibbs as what looks like probably a 3rd stringer. We don't really know though. No, Craig Reynolds is actually the 3rd stringer. So this player is actually the 2nd stringer. The 1st stringer. Jahmyr Gibbs at a 0. All right. This is good to know. Okay. So you can tell we need to do something here as well. So we're actually going to start to be giving some points to Detroit here. So when it comes to the Chiefs running back, you have 3 running backs with pretty good numbers. So you're almost overestimating the Chiefs running back potential in this game because you'll use 2, you can use 3 running backs, but usually you see more of 2. And so who's the 3rd stringer there? It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Well, all right. Let's pretend we use all 3, though. I know it's showing a good balance. I don't want to remove anybody. When it comes to Detroit, notice that Craig Reynolds is weaker than the other 2, but this Gibbs is probably going to play. And I haven't heard of this name, and I have no idea. So let's see Bing about this. Can you give me a scouting report on Jahmyr Gibbs, running back for the Detroit Lions?
Searching for Jahmyr Gibbs, Detroit Lions.
I'm guessing this person to be named 1st string running back must have some pedigree.
I could give you some information about Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back for the Detroit Lions. Here is a brief scouting report based on my web search results. Yamir Gibbs is a rookie running back who was drafted by the Lions in the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft
Just
with
what
the
I thought.
12th overall pick.
Wow.
He played college football at Georgia Tech with 1 year at Alabama. Gibbs is a versatile and explosive player who can run, catch, and return kicks. He has excellent vision, balance, agility, and speed. He can make defenders miss in the open field and break tackles with his strength and elusiveness. He is also a reliable receiver out of the backfield who can create mismatches with linebackers and safeties. Gibbs has some areas of improvement, such as his pass protection, ball security, and durability. He needs to work on his blocking technique and awareness to protect his quarterback. He also has to be more careful with his fumbles, especially in traffic. He has a history of injuries that limited his playing time in college and raised some concerns about his long-term health. Gibbs is expected to be a key contributor for the Lions offense in 2023.
I mean, talk about AI. I mean, that sounds incredible, doesn't it? So this was pointing out something lacking in the algorithm, which was not a current proper rating for someone. This all could, he's a rookie, but he is a 12th round pick. And so when it comes to at least expectations, and certainly that seems as though it will translate at least into touches in this game, given that there's at least considerable hype in Detroit, according to what Bing AI just said. And I believe it. I got no reason not to believe it. So we'll go with that. And notice I'm not giving him the QB1 rating above Montgomery, who's also a pretty good running back, if I remember correctly. So we're going to assume that Detroit tries to get a running game going in this game. And it's now important to put that up here. All right. So what next? Tight ends. And then we'll go to the big, long wide receiver list. So here you have obviously such a drastic disparity in the rating for Kelsey. We talk about impactful player, right? He's probably, I think, one of the most impactful players on the list, if not the most impactful player, apparently. You've got Noah Gray, you've got Blake Bell. So all that looks, I think, reasonable. Now here we're missing information on some people on Detroit again, right? So Brock Wright rating is right around Noah Gray. Are any of these tight ends like amazing potential? Scouting report on James Mitchell and Sam Laporta, tight ends for Detroit Lions.
Searching for James Mitchell, Detroit Lions. Searching for Sam Laporta, Detroit Lions.
We're upping our.
Here are some scouting reports on James Mitchell and Sam Laporta, the tight ends for the Detroit Lions, based on my web search results. James Mitchell is a second-year tight end who was drafted by the Lions in the 5th round of the 2022 NFL Draft. He played college football at Virginia Tech with 1 year at Alabama. He is a big and athletic target who can stretch the field and create mismatches with his size and speed. He has good hands and can make tough catches in traffic. He is also a solid blocker who can help in the running game. He had 11 receptions for 113 yards and 1 touchdown in his rookie season. He needs to work on his route running and consistency to become a more reliable option for the Lions offense.
Wait a minute.
Sam Laporta is a rookie tight end who was drafted by the Lions in the 2nd round of the 2023 NFL Draft.
I need to stop.
He played college football at Iowa.
So I do not have his rookie season. When was his rookie season? 2022, which is last year. We don't have him with any receiving yards. Bing. What? 11 receptions for 113 yards in his rookie season, which I assume was, maybe that was 2021. All right. Well, what we can do is at least use that information. So they said 113 yards and a touchdown. All right. Well, somebody who received for 113 total yards and a touchdown, get this, right? We're going to look at yards for a second. We're going to sort all receivers by yards. And we're going to find the area that has about 113 there, which is going to put him all the way down here, like somebody who has 113 is Tegan Quidoriano on Houston. How many touchdowns? He had 2. Here's somebody who had 110 yards and 1 touchdown. Bashad Perriman. Okay. That's a 6% player. Bashad Perriman. And also the ranges down here are all between 6 and 10, 6 and 8. So 6 is kind of on the low end. 2 touchdown people have so a proper rating for the player that we do not have in there as we go back to that. I know we're getting really drawn out with every single player, but why not? I mean, this makes this thing the best ever. Is that he's about there, right? Akin to somebody else who had similar stats of 113 yards and a touchdown. So that's Mitchell. Well, what about Sam Laporta? And I'm just going to gloss over instead of have Bing read it to you. He's a 2023 drafter.
I'm sorry. I don't understand what you mean.
No, we're fine. Okay. Willing blocker. All right. So we have no number on this person, but they were drafted in the 2nd round. So 2nd round means he's probably going to get some action. That's a pretty high pick. If you're the 2nd player that your team chooses, they're planning on playing you. And I think that doesn't sound great for James Mitchell as much. It seems like this player probably gets some touches just based on being a 2nd round pick. So we're going to up that a little bit. I'll actually stick with the 10% because of the 2nd round pick thing. All right. So now we're starting to get really, really close to really good with all of our players having looked at them one by one when we work with our projection. Now we look at the wide receiver list. Okay. So important information I can see on Detroit now, which is showing up on top. And then we'll get to Kansas City. All right. Number 1 on Detroit, questionable Amon-Ra St. Brown with a huge number here. So what is that all about? The most recent injury report we have is right here. Like, how questionable is this player? Amon St. Brown. Ankle. Should be playing, but it's listed on here. Okay. And one thing I've learned about injuries is that, people play through stuff. It's the beginning of the year, but for something to be listed for a starting player at this point in the season means it must have been something like ankles hurt sometimes. And it affects, it's something that can be re-injured quickly. So when you see this here, you need to take this into account somewhat. Now, what we can do is we can remove all questionable players from the list when we do our projected score. And it's almost something we should look at in terms of range because we don't know how he might play. So let's keep that in mind. We're not going to override his contribution because he's probably still playing. Marvin Jones, otherwise, might get targeted more. Josh Reynolds might get targeted more. Kareem Mayman. And then who is this Antoine Green? That I don't know. Can you give me a scouting report on Antoine Green, Detroit Lions wide receiver?
Searching for Antoine Green, Detroit Lions. Sure, I can give you some information about Antoine Green,
Thank you. You're
the
so
wide
helpful.
receiver for the Detroit Lions. Here is a brief scouting report based on my web search results. Antoine Green is a rookie wide receiver who was drafted by the Lions in the 7th round of the 2023 NFL Draft with the 12th overall pick.
7th round.
He played college football at North Carolina with 1 year at Alabama. Green is a big and athletic target who can stretch the field and create mismatches with his size and speed. He has good hands and can make tough catches in traffic. He is also a solid blocker who can help in the running game. He had 11 receptions for 113 yards and 1 touchdown in his rookie season. Green has some areas of improvement, such as his route running and consistency. He needs to work on his technique and awareness to become a more reliable option for the Lions offense.
Wow. She got a little critical there at the end. You can see a lot of this. So there was like a positive ending. So 7th round pick. this year's draft though, right? Right? 2023 draft. That's the current year. All right. Yowza. Okay. So jeez. We'll put the depth string below the name so that we can always know what string they are. He's listed as 6th string. So, all right. The only reason I'm going to up him slightly from 0 is because Amon St. Brown is questionable and they might have to go to more receivers. So I'm going to give him a 0.05 just to give him a little something. So that person might play. It's probably the way to go there. All right. So not much, but something. Also, I kind of want to recognize that we've looked at a player, and if a player is going to get a 0, they should have a 0 for a reason. And given that Amon St. Brown's questionable, like I said, they might be targeting more people. So we'll give them a little something. Chiefs now. The Chiefs list here has Richie James, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Justin Watson, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, what would be probably the 2nd stringer. The 1st string receiver, Kadarius Toney, has a questionable injury. What's that injury? Let's take a look. A meniscus. Yikes. So meniscus puncture you. Oh gosh, they hurt. So when you're doing hard landings and stuff like that, for them to say that you can play through it eventually. I don't know if you had meniscus surgery, but this is something to be watched as a questionable. So we're definitely going to take a look at everything when we remove questionable players, and we'll see how that impacts the score. But we're going to leave that rating. That's good to know. So one of Mahomes' targets is at least in questionable status there. Now, what about Justin Ross and Rashee Rice? Justin Ross, wide receiving scouting report, Kansas City Chiefs. See if they get the right Justin.
Searching for Justin Ross, Kansas City Chiefs.
So they're using Justin because I didn't spell it right. And let's see if they get this right. Actually, they spelled it
Here's a scouting report
Justin
Ross, the wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs, based on my web search results. Justin Ross is a 2nd-year wide receiver who entered the NFL as an undrafted free agent with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. He played college football at Clemson with 1 year at Alabama. Ross is a big and athletic target who can stretch the field and create mismatches with his size and speed. He has good hands and can make tough catches in traffic.
So we've heard that
He's
description
also a solid
frequently.
blocker who can help in the running game. He had 11 receptions for 113 yards and 1 touchdown in his rookie season. Ross has some areas of improvement, such as his route running and consistency.
My God.
He needs to work.
Okay. I think we just found something out. I think that Bing is lying to us. Man, AI is tough. So my spidey sense has gone off because we've got 11 receptions and 113 yards and 1 touchdown. Does that sound familiar to you? Does it sound like, what was it, Jameson Williams or somebody? No, who was it that we also applied that to? Person who was 6%. James Mitchell, right? James Mitchell, I gave the same thing, and I could not find those stats historically in last year's stat sheet. And therein lies the conundrum. How do you know information is good? Well, you can watch the games, and that'll help you to see who actually plays. But this is why we run into this problem, and we're almost done, but I just wanted to point out it's tough to get accurate information, especially about people that have never played before. And as we adjust this, the quality of what we put in here matters. Now, did Bing lie to us about everybody? I hope not. But you heard it. If you listen to this, what Bing said about the players we've gone through so far. If you know any different, let me know in the comments so that we can try to get this even more right. Maybe you watched some preseason games and saw some of these people play. But let's go back to wide receivers and finish off here for a second. So I don't trust anything I heard about this player. and whether or not, because one, I got the wrong name in there. Maybe that's why. And then there's Rashee Rice, which I have no information on. What do we do here? Let's try Google. Let's try Google. Rashee Rice, wide receiver scouting report, Kansas City Chiefs. There's Draft Network. There's different sources. We don't know what we're going to do here. We've lowered the receiving core significantly, so we've put a lot of weight on Mahomes here. And are these people going to play? Like, what string are they? 4th, 7th string Justin Ross, maybe that's right for him to be a 0. 4th string receiver probably gets some type of amount. Like the 4th string is Josh Reynolds for Detroit. So Detroit's pretty deep there. So Rashee Rice needs a rating. And some of the lower ones are 0.2. We only gave Antoine Green a 0.5. Let's give Rashee Rice at least a 0.1. We got to give him something. Otherwise, we're not doing it right. We're going a long way just to get the accurate score, but I want this to be the video about the game. And I'm going to put what the final projection was that we went with. Now, Rashee Rice. Rice. R-I-C-E. There he is. We're going to give him a 0.1, which is what we had originally. We're going to go back up here, and now we're going to basically say that we are complete, having gone over every single player that was on the depth chart. All right. I changed somebody's name. Oh my gosh. Jesus. Right. Okay. So what we have is a final. Yeah, you heard me. This is the new number. Refresh. 2420, everybody. That's what it is. That's the final score. But the questionable injury people could, if you pull them out of there and you refresh, change the score of this game to 22-17. So what you're supposed to get from everything that we just went through in this game is Mahomes probably comes down the field and is good for even more than 3 touchdowns and a field goal or 2+. Some of these ratings are kind of low. If you have this magnifier to 6 because it's first game of the season, people are out there trying to score and moving around, you get to something like a 24-18 game. All right. We're going to go back here. We're going to refresh and we're going to leave in the questionables because I've learned historically we probably should leave in the questionables, but just understand that the direction of the game will trend scoring downward if those guys get hurt, most likely. Because the other people that get targeted probably wouldn't produce as much. So all that being said, what is this saying about this game? It's saying that, yeah, the Chiefs win, but we just added a bunch of expectation offensive players on Detroit. Now, is Jared Goff going to supply those players? Well, even if he doesn't, Teddy Bridgewater can do something, and sometimes play a good game. So there's some more potential for Detroit's offense than you would normally think. So when we go and we look at this game, we say, well, yes, the Chiefs obviously should win this game, but it doesn't stretch them more than a touchdown unless you get up to magnifier of what, 0.6? A magnifier of 6? No, it still doesn't. I love that about this, is that the magnifier is smart. And it actually made this a 4-point game after I made some other adjustments, though. So yeah, this is more what it's like. This is going to change. This is not going to be 22-17. This is going to be something higher, right? 24-20. Exactly. It's 3 touchdowns and a field goal for Kansas City and 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals for Detroit is what it's saying. Now, notice that the projected points are somehow at 44. So the odds makers and the algorithm what's the over-under? Over-under set at 54. No, odds makers think more points in this game. They're thinking magnifier all the way up around 8. No, that's 65 points. No, magnifier 7. So they're thinking more points in a game like this in Kansas City. Yeah, something like this. So they're thinking that this is about the game flow. Probably because there's more of that offense on Detroit, which could drive the score up. There you go. And a magnifier of 6.7. This is probably what about the odds makers are thinking. Notice this is not a touchdown, right? And you can see that the spread goes in favor of Detroit if you wanted to bet them according to the projected score, because it says you get 31, it would be 31-29 Detroit if you add the spread in. And so it wants you to take Detroit's line, but with injuries and stuff and bringing the score down, it still keeps it within the drive. I'm amazed to see that. So I would have thought that it would have had Kansas City pulling away more, but we've added in enough Detroit that this is what it looks like, everybody. So what the algorithm is saying, and what, the brief summary, if you were to put this as like a mini clip, if I made a short or something out of this portion of it, it would be that, hey, after all the algorithms work where we dug through every single player and tried to give them an intelligent rating, and we looked at injuries as well, and questionable injuries and everything else, that when we did that, we came out with probably something like a 24-20 score for the Chiefs. They don't cover the spread, and this game always seems to stay within a touchdown in all of the projections. So when you watch this game, you'll say, all right, well, did the Chiefs have less of a receiving core to hit normally, and Mahomes would throw some balls that got dropped by people, and they didn't get as many points as you would think they might get being the Chiefs? And did Detroit's offense and running game and such, right? Like Detroit has numbers when it comes to not tight ends, because Kelsey is such a huge player on Kansas City. But when it came to wide receiving core here and running backs especially, like, did Detroit get their running game going with this new running back? And that creates some more offense for them, which kept them close because they established a running game. Like, that's what you would kind of look for, is you would probably want to take the types of bets where it says, does Detroit go over a certain amount of rushing yards for the game? Something like that. Because of where the algorithm is kind of showing, it's not really distortions, but Kansas City's running game is also super strong. I was just surprised to see somebody that we had a 0 in here for. Like, how does this guy really play? He's going to get touches. That's kind of what I'm seeing in this list, is that Detroit is going to try to establish some type of running game with this guy. So maybe that guy's team yards, while you don't know how he's going to perform, he's going to get touches, right? So when you're looking at and analyzing the game at this deep level, this guy is probably a pretty decent pick. I'm sure he's probably expensive and stuff when it comes to fantasy or whatever that is, but it's just interesting to look at that and now understand the nature of probably what happens in this game. So both teams establishing running, Mahomes having a little less to choose from in the wide receiving core. Detroit and Kansas City both having guys that have reasonable questionable injuries that could keep this score lower. So we think they are really probably going to go lower than the 54.5. A magnifier up around 7 is generally too high, unless it's a crazy offensive game. And both these teams establishing running games, which end up using more of the clock, even more of a reason that this probably stays under the 54.5. So when it comes to the most likely outcome, it's the Chiefs winning the game and the score staying under 54.5. Probably. All right. That is the algorithm. That's how deep it can get. I don't do this for every game because I kind of have to, but you can see how much detail it takes. And so there will be a private video for the week 1 analysis, because as you can see, I have not done this entirely for the rest of the week yet. We did that one game, and to show all the games, you have to open up all the teams now. We haven't edited all the other teams and really got that great. So right now we've got a Chiefs landing right in the middle here, right? Like, it thinks there are so many games in this week that are better, even though they're not updated yet. there's so many other games that are supposedly better survivor pool picks, and that's because this game stays within a touchdown. So another thing I almost want to give you as advice on every single game is this a game that could be a survivor pool pick? I don't know how many survivor pools you're in, right? And there's something to be said for getting in like 5 different survivor pools and choosing a different team from this list so that you don't get knocked out in one tournament, or in more than one tournament on the same game. Like always pick a different team from this list. Would you pick the Chiefs if you had 5 survivor pools this week? Right now it says no. It says they could lose this game with a star new running back potentially on Detroit, and Mahomes' receiving core being slightly injured. Like they could rely on Kelsey too much and stuff like that, even though they're probably going to win. It's not way up here. You can see there are so many other games that we'll talk about in the private video, which will get released after the games are over. But for those who subscribe, it's going to be in the private video discussing what I've done and going through every single one of those games like that here in week 1, because we kind of have to. It takes a while, but it's worth it. It gets worth it. Like Tanner McGee actually needs a type of rating. He performed well enough in preseason to what looks like win a roster spot over Marcus Mariota, who's not even listed on this list. He should be, because he's in the depth charts, but I manually removed him. There's all kinds of stuff I got to talk about. That's for the private video. This was a super extensive video about Thursday night because I just want to show you like how deep this can really get. And now I feel confident here on Monday, knowing what to expect in this game. And I'm happy with all of my digested knowledge about this Thursday night game. I'm like, okay, Ken, don't get too surprised that the Chiefs get upset because this game's within a touchdown the whole time, and Detroit has added a lot of offense. And it might even be Teddy Bridgewater that comes in and does it. You never even know. All right. Good luck, everybody. We'll see if this comes exactly 24-20. The algorithm has a way of doing some amazing things sometimes. So good luck. May all your picks be winning.